Greetings and welcome to Mount Olympus. I am Hercules Invictus, and today I'm proud to bring you one of our legacy shows, Brian's Drive-In Theater with Brian Walker. Greetings and welcome, Brian. How are you?
I'm well tonight, Hercules. How are you doing?
I'm doing extremely well. A bit tired, but extremely well.
Tired here too. We're on vacation. We're in Savannah, Georgia, until tomorrow, and we vacate. We go to a German village in northwestern Georgia called Helen, which we've never been to before. And Greg has some German heritage. We both love German beer and German food, so we're looking forward to that. But being on vacation, it kind of sparked tonight's topic. What I wanted to talk about tonight was a habit that a lot of families used to be in, and some may still be, of being on vacation and taking in some entertainment in the form of a film.
That sounds like fun.
It was something that my parents and I did every time we went on vacation. Usually, we were on vacation in the summer because that used to be the traditional 50 years ago. If you went on a family vacation, it was usually in the summer because in the fall and the spring, kids were in school. Parents didn't take their children out of school back then for only if they were sick or something like that. Now they just take them out for a week and they go on whatever vacation they want when they want to. But it was so much more scheduled and regimented back in the day.
Yes, it was.
So what I wanted to talk about were my memories of seeing films during vacation and how that morphed over the years. Later on, when home theater became, I hate to say it's not with us much anymore, but when it became a big thing, whenever Greg and I would travel, whether we were on vacation or whether we were going to a conference, we would seek out places that sold VHS and then later DVD, because in a lot of those independent shops that you would find in some bigger cities, you could find some titles that you just didn't see much anywhere else. Really.
I miss that. I really, really miss that because now even the Goodwills and the Salvation Armies, they used to have a wide variety of DVDs, Blu-rays, and VHSs that you might not ever have seen or you might not have seen in a while. They're empty. The shelves are like down to one shelf of this type of media.
I know, and I kind of wonder, are these things winding up in the landfill, or is there somebody who's hoarding?
Those are both
So
good ideas.
who knows? All I know is that I am holding on to my physical media until my last breath.
Me too.
Especially when it comes to films. A lot of people like to watch TUBI. It's a
Mhm.
free streaming channel that a lot of people have gotten into, but unfortunately, Tubi has started cutting some of the films that
Yes.
they've been showing, and it's created a lot of hubbub online. It's not going to change things, but it has. And there again, it was just another reminder that I'm going to keep my I'm going to keep my physical media. I paid for this DVD, damn it.
And I noticed that about
I
Tubi
could watch,
too.
I could watch this until the day.
I've been away
Pardon me.
from Tubi for a while, and I went back to Tubi and I figured I'd watch stuff that I'd already watched just because I liked it. And I noticed not only were there more commercials, but there were some of the pieces of the movie that were there last time I saw it weren't there anymore.
Yep.
And
Yeah.
I'm
So,
holding on to mine too.
um,
I'm holding on to my physical
so
media.
that's sort of the evolution of all this is that after we would, and Greg and I used to make some significant hauls. You wouldn't believe the DVDs, depending on which town we had gone to, that we would stuff in our luggage. I even bought a piece of luggage once to put all of the crap that I bought from Amoeba in San Francisco in. I used it as my carry-on, and it was full. I mean, it was just nobody ever questioned me about it, thank God, because I wasn't getting back on that plane without those DVDs that I bought, or we bought, that is. Um, and of course, when you buy them, you also if you back then you laptop. I was had my laptop with me, so I could do work for work or work on my website. And back then, they still had DVD players because the last two that I've had, they don't even bother with DVD players anymore. Internal ones anyway. You can buy an external. Um, but that's going to be tonight's topic. And I wanted to kick it off with a movie that I saw on summer vacation in 1977.
Sounds great.
Okay. All right. You're a big fan of the film Jaws, correct?
Yes, I have a lot of stories tied to the movie Jaws.
Well, and to tell you the truth, I don't think I've ever met anybody who doesn't like Jaws. I mean, it's one of my big favorites. I have vivid memories of seeing it as a kid. We did not see it on summer vacation. We saw it in the town in which we were living at a 1930s theater that had been renovated in the 70s. So everything was brown and orange. And we had to buy tickets in advance to see Jaws. Well, 2 years later, um, Peter Benchley, who wrote Jaws, had another film that was supposed to be a big blockbuster called The Deep. And The Deep starred, gosh, it had a really good cast too. Jacqueline Bisset, Robert Shaw from Jaws is in it. Nick Nolte, of course, that was his kind of big breakthrough role at the time. And I can remember the marketing around it that they were pushing him really hard as a heartthrob, but I don't know why, because Nick Nolte and heartthrob, you can't really say that in the same breath. Well, I mean, I just I don't have anything against Nick Nolte, but not a heartthrob. It also had Lou Gossett Jr., Bob Miner, Cameron Mitchell is in it, interestingly, just in a small role, however, and Eli Wallach as well.
Wow.
And actually, all three of us were really excited to see this film because it was written by the person who wrote Jaws. So everybody's thinking, oh, wow, it's another Jaws type film, and that it's going to have lots of suspense and lots of passages in the movie that kind of make you squirm or jump back or something like that. And unfortunately, The Deep is dull, 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 and nothing happens in this movie at all. It just lays there like a bored hooker. It is so dull. I was so excited to see that movie. My 12-year-old bride. Yeah. And I think toward the end of the second hour, I was just kind of like this. It's like, oh my God, can this end so we can get to the food court or something like that? In this random mall that we stopped at to see this movie.
I know that
And,
I saw it, but I don't even remember it, and I've never gone back to see it. So I guess I had the same. But
and that's a really good point too. That movie was hyped to death that summer. I mean, they were ready for this to be like big, super spectacular film, and it did do well at the box office because it was hyped really effectively. A lot of it borrowed from Jaws, and the hype around it. But that movie, after that, just kind of died. It just sort of dropped off the face of the earth. I'm sure you can probably watch it now somewhere, some point if you want to, but I don't think anyone wants to. It's it has great talent too, and I don't know what happened with it, but you got to go back to the script. It just
Mhm.
nothing happens in this movie. There is no suspense. It's just nothing. And a great cast like this too. Robert Shaw, Eli Wallach, Lou Gossett Jr., Jacqueline Bisset. She was in every other hit film for a good 15 years. So she was sort of a guaranteed, she was a big star at the time and kind of a guaranteed hit. And it's just a big old bore. I didn't hate the movie or anything, but I just kept waiting for the payoff. I just kept waiting for something to happen, and nothing ever happened.
That's horrible when something ruins your expectations and it's heavily hyped. I felt that way with Kramer versus Kramer. I think it was the movie. They had hyped that to death, and everybody fucking great movie. And then I went to see it, and it was like just hype. There wasn't any substance to the movie. But yeah,
Well,
I remember The Deep being like that as well.
Well, interestingly, I went to see Kramer versus Kramer with a school friend of mine. And I don't know why we picked that film. It was just it wasn't a great movie for two 14-year-olds to watch. Because there again, we were just kind of sitting there like this.
But it was hyped. It was hyped everywhere you went, everywhere your eyes went. There was Kramer versus Kramer, Kramer versus Kramer. So of course you had to go see it.
It was, and you know, a lot of it built off the fact that a lot of people were getting divorced at the time. There was a huge wave of divorces, and that was, I think, late 70s. Huge wave of divorces at the time, and I guess it was an interesting study into what happens to children, in a situation like that. Although now it's the norm, it's hardly the exception. And a lot of it's just turgid melodrama for no reason. You know, I was just kind of, and that's another movie that never really came back around. It had no life beyond, no real life beyond its original release. It made a big star out of Meryl Streep, however. It really put her on the map. I mean, she'd been around, but that movie kind of cemented her, in as a major star, as a big star. And but I agree with you. It's I don't think anybody ever wants to see that movie again.
I haven't even seen the dollar bins or the $1.25 bins now. They used to be the 99 cents bins.
Well, it was actually in there.
No, I mean I've never even seen it in there. Where
Oh, because I was going to say, you know, I don't think I've ever seen it on even on DVD. It's got to be though, I would
yeah, I
think.
think it's got to be everything eventually became, I think. But no, I never come across it.
Yeah, unless there was some sort of weird rights thing, rights issue about it, it
Maybe.
should be there. Well, another film that I can remember seeing on vacation, and this is a little different, but this is the way I wanted to go with this. The very last family vacation that we took before my folks split up was around 79, 80. I'm not really sure. I think it was 1980. Um, and I can't even remember where we were, but something that we were supposed to do that particular day got rained out. And instead, we were kind of cooped up at the hotel because it was a pretty significant storm. There wasn't a whole lot that you could do, certainly nothing outside. And the hotel that we were staying at had TBS, and can't remember if they had HBO or not, but they had some movie channels that were pretty new at the time. You know, we didn't at my house, we didn't get HBO until like, I don't know, 81 or something like that. A home box office, I guess I should say, which the name doesn't really exist anymore. Now that did Cinemax buy that, Greg?
I don't
HBO Max. Okay, so it is. So the name actually does survive, which is nice. But remember what a big thing HBO was.
Yes, I remember.
They ran, you know, racy movies and well, oh God, yeah, lots of convoy, yes, but they ran racy movies, and racy meaning,
R-rated, R plus.
well, yeah, I guess they were R-rated, and they only ran them from 6 p.m. to 6 a.m. And then you didn't have any content on HBO like during the day from 6 a.m. to 6 p.m. There was nothing, and their content started in the evening when more adults would be around, so kids wouldn't be sitting at home watching these dirty films, only to find out that they were running Convoy like 4 times a day, and it's PG. I do remember seeing it. But the film that we watched on that rainy afternoon when we couldn't do anything was, which I believe, if my memory serves me correctly, was on TBS, and it was called Flight of the Phoenix, and it's a really good movie, actually. And it was the first time I had ever seen it. It was released in 1965. It's got a fantastic cast too. It's almost entirely male. Um, but it's Peter Finch is in it. Of course, James Stewart's the star of the show. George Kennedy, Hardy Kruger, Richard Attenborough, Ernest Borgnine's in it. And that was for George Kennedy and Ernest Borgnine both. Their film careers got a big boost from this film because it's really well done. And Ernest Borgnine had been in what McHale's Navy, I think, before that.
The Viking.
Um, and he'd gotten pretty famous on McHale's Navy. When that show was still in production, he married Ethel Merman, who was a few years his junior. But kind of an odd pairing, and they weren't married very long. I don't think they stayed together much beyond a month. And the rumor was that she assumed she was the bigger star, between the two of them, and she assumed that that was just going to carry on into their marriage. However, he had really blown up on McHale's Navy. It was a popular show, even though it wasn't very good. He had gotten really popular. His movie career was starting to gin up with Flight of the Phoenix, and whenever they would go out, he was sort of the one that the paparazzi wanted to talk to and wanted to snap his picture, not hers. And apparently, her ego couldn't take it because
She's a
she was but she was the star and expected to be one. And I could see where that wouldn't,
yes.
but I'm not saying that she's right or wrong, but I get it. The only actress in this is Barry Chase, who didn't do much acting, to tell you the truth. She was more of a dancer. And if you're wondering who Barry Chase is, she's still with us. She's over 90 years old, and she has a really interesting, but more or less almost wordless part in It's a Mad, 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 Mad World.
I remember that.
She's Dick Shawn's girlfriend. He's the son of Ethel Merman, and It's a Mad, 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 Mad World. And he's sort of a beatnik, kind of guy. And his girlfriend is, with him in his apartment, and it's Barry Chase.
Wow.
So yeah, all the connections you could make there, pretty interesting, huh?
Interesting.
What were you going to say?
And my family, I remember our family went to the beach and we went to see It's a Man, 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 Man. I remember going to see that. So much for that.
That movie It's a Mad, Mad World, Mad, 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 Mad World, is one of my favorites, to tell you the truth. It's a classic of sorts, but so is Flight of the Phoenix. It's done really well. It's about a cargo plane that goes down during a storm in the Sahara. There's just a few people on board, and they're stranded. Their food's starting to run out, and their water is starting to run out, and they need to escape. They need to get out of there, and that's what without spoiling the rest of the film, that's what it's about. And it's a really good film. I'm not sure I would have ever. It's not something I might have picked if I weren't essentially forced to watch it because it was the only entertainment available to me. But it's really a terrific film. And it's something I can't recommend highly enough. It was remade about 20 years ago, I think, with Dennis Quaid. I never saw the remake, but you know how I feel about remakes for the most part. And just as an aside, did you know that, oh God, I can't think of his name. Oh, Tim Burton is doing a remake of the Attack of the 50-Foot Woman.
Tim Burton is doing that? It's bound to be interesting.
I think it's going to be terrible.
Well,
Anytime a director takes a spirited but really cheap, low budget movie and throws lots of money at it, it always goes awry. It ruins the spirit of the movie, to tell you the truth. I could see where it could be interesting. So I respect Tim Burton, so I'm not pissing on his parade or anything like that. So I will be objective enough to see it, but I don't have very high expectations for it. Unlike The Deep, which I did have.
I
very
liked
high.
his Dark Shadows. That was it wasn't Dark
But,
Shadows as I had enjoyed it.
We
You,
bought the Blu-ray of Dark Shadows, and we have just not watched it yet. It's in the queue, but we haven't done that. Now, moving on to adulthood, when I started traveling, in earnest with Greg back in the '80s, we continued that tradition that both of our families had of going to see movies. And one that I can remember really well that we saw, and I can't remember if it was during spring break or a summer vacation, but we saw Thelma and Louise because it was 1991's like big blockbuster film,
right.
and it had a message, but a terrific cast: Susan Sarandon, Gina Davis, Brad Pitt, which was his big breakthrough film role. Harvey Keitel, Michael Madsen, Christopher McDonald's in it too. Greg and I saw it with some friends at a theater in Central Florida. I think probably close to Orlando when it came out. And at the time, the movie, it was something I really wanted to see because there was a lot of media hype about it, but it did sound interesting. And at the time, I was in graduate school. It sounded like something you could maybe write a paper on, and I had big expectations for it, but this time the movie did not disappoint. I thought that the movie was extremely well done. I will say that I was disappointed in the end of the film. I didn't really. I understand that whenever a protagonist starts committing crimes, whenever a protagonist kills somebody, um, that usually means that protagonist is going to have to pay at the end of the film. Not always, but 99% of the time. And they drive off the cliff at the end of the film in the Thunderbird, and you don't really see it happen, but you can only assume that they were, smashed into little tiny bits. And I kind of hated to see that because, in a sense, the way the narrative is written and the way the film is told, they're sort of forced, into this situation. They don't really have control
Mhm.
over the situation itself, but they have control of their response to it. And I
Right.
think it probably is a really good allegory of what women have historically had to deal with, not only in this country but worldwide. Really, they're handed a situation not of their making, and they're supposed to do something about it. And then when they do something about it, we punish them because they have stepped out of line. That's my reading of Thelma. I don't know. Did you ever see it?
Yes, I saw it. I remember the cliff scene at the end. That stayed with me. And
It was breathtaking at the time. It really was.
yes, and what you're describing is pretty much what my idea of the movie was too. That there was an inevitable conclusion to their escapades.
Yeah, and as the viewer, it made, well, for one thing, it made you think, which a movie should. It should make you think about something. And I think it really did open up at the time, and this is a third of a century ago now, if you think about it, which
Wow,
kind of mind blowing,
it is.
that it's such an old film.
And
Um,
when you said half a century ago about a movie, it struck home too.
but I still find the film really striking. And after that, and around this time, Greg and I had a burgeoning, physical media collection. And at about this time, rather than going out to see a movie, what we started doing was looking for them in video and in DVD stores, trying to find stuff that was either had just come out. Maybe it was a title that I'd always read about, but had never been able to find. And you'll remember, until the internet got really ginned up, let's say the first 15 years or so, it was hard to find this stuff
Yes.
on the internet. And if you did find it, you probably did find it at a store that you were combing through. And we used to do that a lot. Whenever one of us would have to go to a conference for, our jobs, or whenever we would head into one of the bigger cities, Greg would always, grab the yellow pages, the phone book out of the whatever room we were staying in, whatever hotel, and then start the search. And then we would try to figure out where the local independent video store was.
Mhm.
That was endless hours of fun, to tell you the truth. And we have a really nice physical media collection, and a lot of it's because we were able to go to places like Newberry Comics in Boston, Amoeba Records in San Francisco, and the one in Hollywood. We went to, I cannot remember the name of the store, but years ago in Seattle had an awesome DVD store. It was just awesome. I cannot remember the name of it. I don't know if it's still there. Virgin Megastore, which was, not independent, but they were huge, and both of us loved going to Virgin because they were so big. There was one on
Yes.
Hollywood Boulevard that was just awesome, and there used to be one in Orlando at, oh gosh, what was that called, Greg? Downtown Disney? Okay. And it was a really nice one too. And they had a lot of titles. The one at Downtown Disney, when Virgin closed, I don't know, about 15 or so years ago, the one in Downtown Disney in Orlando became a bowling alley, and it's a really cool one at that. So it's very retro, the bowling alley. So I'm okay with that. It's a lot of fun. The old Virgin Megastore on Hollywood Boulevard is now Amoeba. Amoeba used to be down on, was it on Melrose? I think it was on Melrose, and they moved up to Hollywood Boulevard. And the old Amoeba store which I think was on Melrose, but the one in LA, was in this huge old building, and I think some developer bought the building. It was an old cinder block building, and not in great shape or anything, but it had a lot of character, and it was massive and very crowded as well. Like whenever you picked out all the DVDs or whatever it was that you wanted, be
Uh-huh.
prepared to get in line, because there was a line to get out. An amazing store, and extremely popular and so much fun to go into. They had things that I did not know existed. Um, and if we get to go out to the West Coast next year, I'm going to hit Amoeba. I just want to make sure that they still have some physical media. I don't know that I need to buy anything, but anyway, that takes me to kind of my fascination with Mario Bava.
Uh-huh.
Years ago, I had to go to a conference in Boston, and it was in early March, and had been really difficult for us to get there. We were supposed to fly out of our little town. Our little town has an airport, which is a joke. We were supposed to fly out of it, and we had this freak snowstorm, and it kept snowing and kept snowing, and they kept delaying the flight, and finally they canceled the flight. So in the meanwhile, I had to get on the phone and try to get another flight to get to the conference, because we were going to be a day late already. And I finally was able to do that, but we had to drive to Pittsburgh during a snowstorm, which we did. But we finally made it to Boston, and we had to go to Boston from Pittsburgh. We had to go to Chicago to get to Boston. That was the only way I could work it out. I know it makes no sense. But when we got there, I'm kind of frustrated and tired, and we've been dealing with snow for 24 hours, and it was hard to get to Pittsburgh, but we did it. I wanted to see what Boston had in store, and we found Newberry Comics in Boston. Newberry was a pretty sizable store too. Very neatly organized, and so much more than just comics. They had a little bit of everything. Quite honestly, just I think we went there like 2 or 3 times while we were in Boston because it was just such an awesome store. And while we were there, I picked up the Bava box, which was a collection of Mario Bava DVDs.
Oh, wow.
And actually, we got two collections because Newberry had some pretty decent prices, and we were just stacking stuff up left and right back then anyway. And there were several Mario Bava films that I'd always wanted to see, but hadn't been able to. And I finally got to see Lisa and the Devil. It's a Mario Bava film from 1973. And it's a really interesting failure on his part. It stars Elke Sommer, from all the sex comedies in the '60s, and it's kind of a departure for her in that it's a horror film. And Telly Savalas from Kojak is also in it. And Telly had quite a career in the late '60s and early '70s in international films. He did some Italian movies. He did quite a few Italian movies before his series Kojak took off. And Silva Cascina, who is in the first Hercules film with Steve Reeves. I can't remember. Yes, thank you. I was going to say I can't remember her character's name in it. Is in it as she's in it as a secondary character. She's just supporting Elke Sommer there, and it's a really interesting film. It Mario Bava, even though the film is pretty good, Mario Bava took it to some film festivals and tried to shop it around, and he just never really got it off the ground. It had a very limited release, but it didn't do much. And it was a shame because the movie Lisa and the Devil looks pretty good. It's a little draggy and dull in spots, but I mean it's not a bad film, and this is getting toward the end of Bava's career. But as I said, he just couldn't find an audience for the film, sadly. So the producer witnessed the wonders of The Exorcist and how popular it had been. Also released in 1973. And of course, I went to see The Exorcist when I was a kid with Ellen Burstyn, Jason Miller, Max von Sydow, Linda Blair, Lee J. Cobb. And it was such a hit. So the producer of the film went out and hired Robert Alda, Alan Alda's father. He's the priest, and brought back Elke Sommer to shoot some new footage. And they edited the new stuff back into the old stuff and retitled it The House of Exorcism. Because exorcism's hot now. So, and in the '70s, there were The Exorcist spawned numerous sequels. Not sequels, but spawned numerous bad B movies. Some fun ones too. That's true. And one of the things that the producer did to the film, in order to get people to watch it, they retitled it The House of Exorcism and released it in '75. But they put a lot of nudity in it, lots of just random foul language. People just swear for no reason in it. I'm serious. There's just no reason, and gobs of vomit. I mean, just it's really funny. I mean, it wasn't funny for Mario Bava to see his baby, his film, get chopped up like that. But to try to get this thing off the ground, the new scenes are just wild, and they really are two different movies. There really is a difference between the two, and I do think that if you're a Bava fan, you really should see both of them. Now, you might be grossed out by the second one, The House of Exorcism. You might be a little bored by Lisa and the Devil, but they are two entirely different films. And actually, I'm a big Mario Bava fan, so I'll watch anything. And he never truly made a bad movie. Some of his movies were better than others. And Lisa and the Devil is weak in spots. but even what Bob at his worst is worth watching, in my opinion, and certainly, gosh, I think I've seen just about everything that he was in charge of directing at this point.
Yeah, I tend to agree that even bad Bava is good and worth watching.
Oh, it is. Um, and that brings me to movies that maybe weren't very good. About 20 years ago, we went to San Diego for about a week, and I if this were a perfect world, I would live in San Diego. It's a wonderful place. There's so much to do. You and I talking before tonight's broadcast. I mentioned that it has perfect weather. It's a beautiful place to be, and so many things to see and do in San Diego. Well, one of the things that we did when we were staying in the Gaslamp district was we found an independent DVD store, and Greg and I loaded up. Bought all kinds of things, and we were staying in a really nice hotel. It was I can't remember the brand. It was a chain. I can't remember the brand of it, but it had garage parking for our rental car. The bathroom was beautifully outfitted in marble. It was a nice place, but not crazy expensive at the time. Now it would be insane. Anyway, that evening we had gone out to dinner, and probably were maybe a little overserved at dinner. So we came back. We're feeling pretty good, came back from dinner, and it's pretty late too. I mean, it's like 10 or 11 o'clock, and I go to bed, really early. I'm in bed, usually by 10:30 or so in general, but not this night. And we decided to pull out our new stash of DVDs and see what we were going to put in the laptop to watch. And we started watching a movie that I now run every Mother's Day because it's public domain, and it's called Ma Barker's Killer Brood.
I
uh,
saw that.
it's a fun movie too, and it's public domain, so you can find copies on archive.org. YouTube if you want to, although you're going to have to suffer through lots of commercials on YouTube that you won't have to worry about if you go to archive.org and watch the same thing. It's the same copy. Anyway, Ma Barker's Killer Brood came out in 1960, and it has an interesting cast. Lorraine Tuttle is the star of it, and I'm not sure she ever starred in another film. I'm not sure she ever headlined another one. But she was a very reliable character actress. She specialized in playing parts that were really older than she was. She played older women, even when she wasn't necessarily an older woman. Tristram Coffin is in it. Myrna Dell and Don Grady from My Three Sons has a secondary role in it as well. So that night, Greg and I are watching Ma Barker's Killer Brood, and we're not really feeling any kind of pain. And I had to run to the restroom for a second and flushed the commode, and it immediately exploded.
Oh no.
It went straight up, you know,
That's
and
horrible.
water was shooting everywhere. I mean, I didn't get I didn't initially get wet, thank God. But I mean, it was just sort of like this. And I'm standing there for a minute trying to think, what the hell am I going to do? So I went down to the lobby, and I was like, the bathroom went boom. And in the middle of all of this, we had to switch rooms. So they put us in a different room, but we had to move everything out because the room just kept filling up with water. So anyway, we did finally finish Ma Barker's Killer Brood at about 2 a.m. after we had moved everything over. A really fun movie, and like I said, since it's public domain, it's one that you can easily grab and watch.
And now if I watch it again, I'm going to think of that exploding bathroom story. It's etched on my neurons.
I mean, it just, I don't know what happened, but the water just went It just kept, going up. So, some supplies went bad. I don't know what it was, but it was just a nightmare. Like I said, really nice place. It was a nice hotel. It wasn't a bad place at all.
Some of your adventures that you shared tonight would make an interesting bunch of shorts for a movie.
Either that or a sequel to Vacation.
There you go. I'm looking at the
Uh,
clock. Our conversation's almost over for today.
okay.
So what thoughts would you like to leave with our audience, and how can people reach you and enter the world of Brian's Drive-In Theater?
Well, when you're traveling this spring or summer, try to take in some local entertainment. You see what the area is offering you. We tend to go to places that are maybe off the beaten path and don't offer entertainment. Well, don't offer traditional forms of entertainment, especially when we're in the Upper Peninsula of Michigan, and or beach, where the beach is the entertainment. But if you do go to, a nice city for a few days or a place that offers something, partake, enjoy it. And if you want to check out Brian's Drive-In Theater, maybe watch Ma Barker's Killer Brood on Mother's Day this year, you can go to briansdriveintheater.com. And if you want to interact with me on social media, your only choice is Facebook, but I am in Facebook all the time, and you can find me by running the search for Brian J. Walker or Brian's Drive-In Theater.
Thank you very much. And thank you, Greg. We spotted you moving hither and yon in the film. So thank you for being part of the show. And thank you both for sharing your adventures with us. Hi. Thank you both for sharing your adventures with us on your vacation. And may you enjoy the rest of your vacation and have an awesome time. And I can't wait to hear the stories.
Okay, there's more to the outline, so you'll probably hear it next week.
Okay. And thanks to our wonderful audience for tuning in. We're on YouTube, so there's no telephone calls to make. You'll catch this in the future. Until next time, joyous journeys and amazing adventures for all.
Good night.
Good night.